Hello, my name is Nicolas Normandeau. I'm a PM at Fiera Capital in the Integrated Fixed Income team, and today we'll discuss the NBI Floating Rate Income Fund. The NBI Floating Rate Income Fund posted another strong return in Q2 with a total performance of close to 1.8%. For the full year now, the fund is up 4%, which is way more than cash that is close to zero, but even more than short-term corporate bond funds that performance so far this year is still negative. The positive market tone was mainly driven by the good news on the vaccinations and also on the reopenings of the economies, mainly in the US, but also in Canada and some countries in Europe. The preferred share with an allocation of close of 18% of the total fund were the biggest contributor of performance in the second quarter, particularly the rate reset issues with mid-reset level in sectors like energy, utility, but also insurance. As for our high yield and hybrid exposure, which is about 5% of the total fund, they also performed really well in the quarter, particularly the issues within the energy sector. As for our investment grade corporate bond exposure, which is about 75% of the total fund, our focus in the short term and mid-term part of the yield curve were also positive contributor of performance, particularly the issues within the real estate sector, but also the energy sector. The flattening of the yield curve in the second quarter in the very short end of the yield curve did not impact too much the performance of the fund because we maintained the duration of the fund below 1 year for the full quarter. The fund average yield at 1.7% remained attractive in this low interest rate environment and have upside if at some point the Bank of Canada decide to hike interest rate. As for the duration, it remained ultra low at 0.75 year to protect against higher rates in the future. 80% of the fund is invested into corporate bonds, including high yield and hybrid securities. 75% of them have a maturity of 5 years and shorter, with a total duration of 3.2 years. But we're using interest rate swap to reduce the overall duration of our corporate bonds portfolio to 0.75 years. It is well diversified across sector. We have a bias toward quality with more than 50% of the fund invested in securities rated A or better. And for the high yield exposure, which is at only 5% of the fund, it is only into BB security, stable names like Videotron, Parkland, Cominar, and Superior Plus. 20% of the fund is invested into preferred share, mainly rate reset issues, but also some floating rate issuance. We have a focus toward quality, which means we have more P2 rated, but we also have a focus on rate reset level, which we tend to favor the mid and the high reset level. We're expecting more volatility in the second half of 2021 in interest rate, but also in credit. The Delta variant and potentially other variants could delay the full reopening of some countries as vaccination rollout is different across the world. The inflation and the GDP growth should continue to be above average over the next quarters, but we think that the Bank of Canada and the Fed will continue to be patient before hiking rate, as we think the inflation pressure will be transitory. The Bank of Canada will continue to taper its QE over the next 2 quarters, which could bring some volatility to the interest rate. After that, if everything goes as planned, the bank could decide to hike its overnight rate for the first time since the pandemic, but only in the second half of 2022. The credit spreads and the preferred share should be more volatile in the second half of this year. But we think that the fiscal stimulus in place and the still low interest rate environment will be enough for the fund to perform better than the average yield. Our forecast for the next 12 months is a total performance between 2 and 2.5%. The NBI Floating Rate Income Fund is well positioned for a higher interest rate environment with this ultra low duration and still provide attractive yield in this low interest rate environment. Thanks for taking the time and have a great summer.